Hello and welcome back to my crochet channel. In this video I am going to share with you a donut sweater that I have been working on for several months now. I just finished it and I'm so excited to show it to you. Just look at this thing! It's a donut sweater! Alright, so I'm going to show you how I went about making this sweater, all the things, making each donut and the sprinkles and everything. So stay tuned and let's get into the video.
Let's start this donut sweater by making a full donut. I'm using Lion Brand's Vanna's Choice in color pink for the icing and Bernat Super Value in color oatmeal for the donut, as well as a size 5mm hook. So to start, make a chain of 9 and join with a slip stitch, being careful not to twist the chain as you work. So for round 1, chain 2. This does not count as a stitch. Make 2 double crochet in each stitch around for a total of 18 double crochet stitches at the end of the round. Note that I am keeping a fairly relaxed tension because I want the end fabric to be soft and flexible. Round 2, chain 2, and again this does not count as a stitch. Make 2 double crochet stitches in each stitch around for a total of 36 double crochet stitches at the end of the round. And at the end you can cut the yarn and weave in the ends. Round 3. So now we're going to join the new yarn into our donut piece and we're going to work in the back loop only. So first chain 1, and again working in the back loops only of the stitches, single crochet in each stitch around. And in this final round I usually like to carry the yarn tails as I work to minimize the amount of ends to weave in at the end, but you can do this step after. And then we're just going to cut the yarn and weave in the ends. And that's one donut ready to be decorated with sprinkles. Next up is the half donut. Again, I'm using the same yarn and hook for this, but we'll be working in rows instead of rounds. So row 1, chain 6, then make 2 double crochet into the 3rd chain from the hook and into the next chain. Make 3 double crochet into the next chain, then 2 double crochet in the next chain and turn. Row 2, chain 2. This does not count as a stitch, and I don't think I mentioned this before, but when it does not count as a stitch, you just make the required stitches in the same space as the starting chain. So make 2 double crochet into each stitch, and at the end of the row, cut the yarn and you can weave in the ends, or you can save that part for later. Next, row 3, we're going to use the other color of yarn. In my case, I'm using oatmeal. We're going to join the yarn, chain 1, and working in the back loops only, single crochet into each stitch around. And again, you can carry the yarn tail along, or you can leave it for later to weave in. Then we just cut the yarn and weave in the ends. And that is how you make a half donut. Now you just have to repeat that a million times. At least that's what it felt like. In the end, I made a lot of donuts. I think I had 52 at one point. I keep counting the donuts on my sweater, but it just seems like I made more than that. But once I had all my donuts, it was time to arrange them to form a sweater. Originally, I was going to have half donuts along the neckline, but it just wasn't speaking to me, and I really liked the idea of having full donuts along the neckline. I just thought it looked a lot prettier and interesting. When it came to stitching the donuts together, I thought I had the stitching all figured out. I was trying to go for an invisible-ish seam, but it turned out that it wasn't sturdy enough. I still kept going though, because I thought maybe if I finish everything, it will all work out once all the donuts are stitched together. But after I had stitched together a very significant portion of the donuts and I tried the sweater on, I had to accept it wasn't working. The donuts stretched so much I was actually worried they would eventually resemble ovals. So I climbed out of my cave of denial and took them all apart. I finally settled on using the whip stitch, a much sturdier way to join and one where the shape of the donuts would remain a shape of a donut. And at some point I took a break from stitching donuts together to add a ribbed hem to the bottom of the sweater. After quite a bit of stitching, it was time for a fit check, and I was happy with how the sweater was looking so far. I still didn't know what I would do about the sprinkles at this point, but I was hoping for a spark of inspiration. Here is the donut sweater. I am in the process of making sleeves for it. It looks really cute, sleeveless, but I feel like it should have sleeves. This is an experiment, adding sprinkles to my donut sweater because it is a donut sweater. They are a little bit small, so this is something that I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to make these sprinkles pop out a little bit more. I have made part of the sleeves. This is what the sleeves will look like, but there's more to it. This is not finished yet. All right, so this is the set of donuts that I'm going to be using for the sleeves. Just sewed them, simple sewing between each one. And I'm using a half donut for the bottom of the sleeve. So this is where the shoulder starts and then the wrist.
part. This is going to be on the top part of the sleeve, and then I just need to work on making the mesh portion of that's gonna go on the underside and around my arm, or the arm of the sweater. So I'm gonna get started on that now.
Now I'm going to show you how I made the mesh sleeves. I used a trellis stitch, so starting with row 1, chain 42. First row, without stretching, measures 9.5 inches, and if you want to adjust the size, you can add or remove the number of starting chains accordingly. Then single crochet into the 6th chain from the hook. Then you're going to chain 5, skip 3 chains and single crochet into the next chain, and then just repeat that same sequence all the way to the end, and then turn. In row 2, you're going to chain 5, single crochet into the next chain 5 space, and then repeat that to the end, making the last stitch into the top of the turning chain, and turn. Then you're just going to repeat row 2 until you have your desired length. For my sleeves, I worked a total of 42 rows. Alright, so now that I've got the mesh panel for my sleeve, I'm going to now turn it into a sleeve with the donuts that I made before. So I've got my strip of donuts, and here's how I'm going to sew them together. I'm going to lay the donuts over the mesh panel, and I'm just going to fold it so that I've got the edges of the mesh panel lined up with the strip of donuts. And I'm using the same yarn that I used for the mesh panel and for the donuts. And I'm using my yarn needle to just sew the panel onto each of the donut stitches. So I'm just going into each of the stitches along the donuts and sewing it all together nice and evenly. And as I work along, I'm just rearranging, making sure that the donuts are still aligned. I might sort of stretch and move the mesh panel a little bit to make sure that I don't have any snags or that it's bunching up too much, just making sure that it's nice and even.
The sleeve is getting there. I've sewn in a little row of donuts, and now I'm going to add ribbing so that it matches with the ribbing on the base of the main sweater and the other sleeve. So I'm just going to use the same yarn, and I'm going to start picking up stitches. This method of adding ribbing to a hem on a sweater or sleeves, it's one of two methods that I'm familiar with, and it's my preferred method because sometimes you don't know if you're going to add ribbing to something. If you're not sure, then you don't want to spend time making the ribbing and working on your project and then find out at the end that maybe you didn't want to have ribbing. So in this method, I'm going to join the yarn, and then I'm going to make a set of chains. So I'm making 10 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. So I've made 10 chains, and now I'm going to single crochet in the second chain and in each chain back to the hem. Okay, so once I am back at the hem of the sleeve, but I want to make sure that it's gathered as I work. So I'm going to slip stitch into this first, looks like a chain here. I'm also going to be working into the ends of rows or the sides or the edges, so it's not really a stitch. I'm just going to place my stitch where it fits. So I'm going to slip stitch 2 or 3 times. And then I'm going to turn, and since I've already worked up, I don't need to chain, so I'm just going to start single crochet into the first stitch, which is this one right here, and I'm going to be working into the back loops only. So I'm going to single crochet in the back loop of each stitch. Turn, chain 1, and work back again, back loops only. And I'm going to continue counting the stitches as I go along every so often, because it's very easy to place a single crochet stitch where it shouldn't go. It might look like a stitch, but it isn't. For me anyway, it helps to just count and make sure that I've got the right number of stitches. And so I'm just going to, again, slip stitch 3 times. So I'm going to slip stitch into this chain here and into this next chain. And actually, I think in this case, I'm going to just leave it there and work my row and then come back and I'm going to then slip stitch into this single crochet here, and then repeat that sequence where I will slip stitch into the next two and so on. I'm going to turn. I don't need to chain, and I just start single crocheting into the back loop. So slip stitch into that single crochet and then slip stitch into the next two chains.
As I'm making the ribbing for the sleeves and I come across to the half donut portion of the sleeve, I want to keep that gap. So what I do is I just make a chain or two to just make it across the gap, and then I continue the same method of just working in the back loops only to make the ribbing and making sure that I have that set of chains in between the half donut gap.
This sleeve is done. I just need to sew this and attach the other end to the sweater.
And just in case you are not familiar with the whip stitch, this is the stitch that I use to sew all of the donut pieces together.
And just before I weave in that end and finalize that, I just want to make sure that this does actually fit. And yep, that looks good. So I'm going to weave in this end and then move on to sewing the sleeve onto the sweater. So here it is. It feels pretty good. It fits well. I really like the mesh because it's stretchy where it needs to be stretchy, but then it just sort of springs back into its form. So it's kind of nice. I was worried the sleeves would be too short, but actually pretty good. I always find that sleeves tend to get in the way sometimes. With the mesh part of this fabric, I can pull it if I need to, and it's got quite a bit of give, or I could just push it back and it feels pretty good. So hopefully I'm not on my way to Sleeve Island, and I will make the next sleeve and this sweater will be all done. Well, no, it won't be all done because it still needs sprinkles. All right, so how I'm joining this, I'm going to sew it on, of course, but how I'm aligning it, I should say, is that you can see in the first sleeve, I just did a row of donuts all the way down. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and just want to make sure that I'm lining it up with the right donut. So it's going to be this donut here. And I'm going to line it up like this. And then just evenly try to spread it out, sew it and spread it out evenly throughout the entire armhole. And just sew all the way around. I really love how this looks. I'm super happy with how the sleeves turned out. The mesh feels really nice. Like you can see when I bend, there's just all this extra fabric, so it fits really well. Even in like the underarm area, there's always the possibility that there's not going to be enough space and it's going to feel tight, but this feels really good. And I also like the neckline. I don't know if I will add a trim or a border or anything around it, because I really like how this looks. So I might leave this like that. I still need to add the sprinkles. I got this kit off Amazon, and it's all 2 beads that I thought would look really well as sprinkles, but they're kind of small, so I'm gonna have to wait and see how it all looks once I've put the sprinkles on a couple of more donuts, because it's kind of hard to see a little bit. If this doesn't really pop out, then you can't really tell that it's donuts, because my sister said it looks like boobs, so I would like to avoid that. So I'm gonna see what that looks like once I've added more sprinkles to the sweater. Hopefully that will work. If not, I'm gonna need some other alternatives for sprinkles. And as you can probably guess, I did have to figure out another way to add sprinkles, because it just did not look very good. You couldn't actually see the sprinkles with the beads that I had originally. Instead, I ended up stitching the sprinkles on. So I used leftover yarn in some green, blue, some lilac, white, and some yellow, because I thought that these colors would look really good against the pink, and I really like this combination a lot. It does make me think of donuts, and I think it looks very pretty. So I just used a yarn needle to stitch the sprinkles on. What I did was I started with a bit of a knot just to secure the yarn tail a little bit, and then I weaved it in through the back pieces of the donuts just to hide the yarn a little bit, and then poked it out through the right side of the donut and then back into the back of the donut piece. To minimize the yarn strands, I just kept weaving in every couple of stitches, weaving in through the different strands in the back pieces of the donuts, and I did this for every single donut. So yes, this was a very, very long undertaking. This took forever and ever and ever. It's done. The sweater is done. Just let's go put this on. And here is the finished donut sweater. Oh my god, check it out. Alright, so let's talk some features. We've got a nice little donut neckline, and I really love this part of the sweater. We've got a mesh stitch sleeve with donuts running up along the side of the sleeve. Of course, we've got all the donuts all the way around with half donuts on the trim on the bottom parts and half donuts on the bottom parts of the sleeves as well, and a ribbed edging on the sleeves and on the waistband. Each donut was individually sprinkled, individually sewed on all the sprinkles. This took forever. Will I do it again? I don't know. I think in hindsight, I should have added the sprinkles onto the donuts before sewing all the donuts together. But at that point, I wasn't sure what kind of sprinkles I would be using for the donuts. I thought I would be using tube beads. They didn't stand out, they didn't pop out enough on the sweater, like you can see them. So that's why I decided to use yarn and just sew the sprinkles on. And yeah, they definitely show up a lot better than the beads. This has been months in the making, and I'm so happy it's finally done. I love it. Like, so yeah, let me know what you think. Would you make a sweater like this? Are there other donut related projects you would want to see or to make? I'm always up for ideas. I love donut projects. Like, there's a donut right behind me, and I've also got donut pillows and donut amigurumi. Like, I love donuts and I love eating donuts, of course, but you know, when I don't have a donut to eat, I have donuts to crochet and wear. So here I am, kitted out all my donut accessories. So I've got a prototype necklace I made, and then I've got this earring, and here's the other one. I like to mix and match my earrings, so I'm also wearing this little donut stud, and then of course the donut sweater. So this is my completed outfit. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope you have enjoyed this whole donut experience and watching my donut journey. If you want to see more donut related projects, just let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. I'm really curious to know. I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.